Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of transformative drum patterns, looking at songs who are elevated by the drumming ideas that are usually deviating from the norm, the expected patterns that we hear in a lot of music. Today we're going to be looking at the blank reference. That's the band name. The song is the GoriLLa PlatooN, where random letters are capitalized. Both the L's in GoriLLa and then the N at the end of platoon are capitalized. I don't quite know what to make of this. However, I do see something interesting in the description. It says the blank reference is a programmed/live project, of which this page, so this Bandcamp page, is the former. It's the programmed part. The latter, the live part, is an experience that can never be exactly duplicated. So I find that really interesting in that this is a project that sort of incorporates both sides of the musical spectrum, where the live shows are maybe similar but different enough from their studio output to warrant its own elements of it, and they don't seem to record or promote or distribute any of their live performances. It is for live only. Very fascinating. Let's dive into this and see what they're bringing to the table with the GoriLLa PlatooN. Interesting that the volume hasn't changed, but some of the elements I was focusing on are now pushed into the backgrounds. That drum pattern seemed to be very awkward, and then the synth part lined up with it, and it phased together for just a second. don't really hear a lot of change going on, but the song is certainly different from where we started. Rhythmically, it sounds like it's beginning to fall apart. I mean, it was already a chaotic rhythm to begin with. Moments like that where things just line up really nicely for a split moment. Yeah, so I can understand how something like this could be handled in a live format where the live version is different from the studio version. A lot of this actually feels like it is improvised in some way, regardless. Um, I think primarily because despite there being 6 minutes of music, almost 7 minutes of music here, it all sort of revolves around the same isolated concepts. The drum patterns feel chaotic and fluid and just a lot of stuff happening all at one time, while the guitar work, guitar synth work, I guess, is just constantly moving in tons of different kinds of ways, lots of sounds and noises and timbres. I never really seem to have much of a. I mean, there's isolated patterns. I can kind of feel the one beat phrase on it, but it's still just a lot of noise in a lot of ways. And then off to our right, we have a synth pad that gives us these warm chords that sit under everything. And I think the chord progression was rather static throughout the track as well. So, on a compositional level, I don't really feel that there was too much change to what was being played here. A lot of it was the tweaking of sounds, of parameters of the sound, the envelope of sounds, the compression. It was really about changing the sound of the song rather than changing the notes of the song. And so when your entire track is developed by changing parts of the production more so than changing parts of the composition, I think it's really easy to do that on the fly in sort of a live, jammy kind of session where everybody just kind of manipulates things how they want without actually tweaking too much about the music itself. Now, there is one part of the music that does get tweaked, it does get changed, the drums. I'm actually really curious about this if they're programmed or played live, an actual person on a drum kit, primarily because they are consistently doing stuff that's like 16th notes all the time. It takes the sheer endurance and spectacle of, say, the drummer of Neobliviscaris, and just the machine on the two bass kicks, just keeping those constant 16th notes together for like an entire song, and it extrapolates that to the entire body. It isn't just two limbs working in tandem, it's the whole, all four limbs this person has working in tandem to consistently create this rigid, rhythmic, robotic element of the song, just hitting everything on the kit with such perfection to it, at least as far as timing is concerned. It is another extreme display of endurance that is just mind boggling if it's a real drummer, which I'm going to lean on the fact that it probably is, because I know there's some really good finger drummers out there, but the idea of playing something like this with a drum pad, just, I don't know, that feels like it's even more, it'd just be easier to learn the drum kit at that point. But I bring it up because I feel like the drums are fluid. They are always moving in a direction. It is the one part where the music itself can be improvised or modulated upon rather than the production of the sound. And through that lens, I find it to be an interesting element where the drummer really gets to dictate how the song feels at any moment, whether he wants to be out of phase with some of the rhythmic accentuations and syncopations or within, and creating something where there is this singular motion of rhythm throughout the song, or I guess throughout a moment. We only saw like two or three of those moments where everything sort of lines up rhythmically, and I found those to be, I don't know, like isolated moments of enlightenment when all the chaos in the world comes together and you see a bit of clear harmony for just a brief moment, and you remember just how beautiful this world can be at times before everything rips apart and goes its own direction once again. Everything seems chaotic. It was quite beautiful to experience those moments within all of the noise and chaos going on here. And that that kind of is my relationship to this track thematically, narratively, is just chaos. It's interesting to watch the ebb and flow of things, the natural progression of sounds moving between sections without actually changing anything, hearing the natural flow of different parameters in the production being manipulated ever so slightly, just slowly tweaking something up higher or removing something. We saw this at the beginning with some volume. I mentioned that some of the instruments that I was paying attention to had slowly diminished in prominence in the mix, but that it didn't, the song didn't sound like it was getting any quieter. And that was why there was a crossfade, a really slow crossfade going on of ideas, not of sections, but of two different instruments. And so there is this evolution throughout the song. I couldn't tell you where each section was. I couldn't lay out a structure to it, but I can tell you that it changed over the course of the 6 minutes in very minute and slow moving ways. Within all of that, though, the chaos, everybody playing a million different notes at one time, is a static element, and it's what stuck with me. It's really difficult to get a grasp on anything that's happening in this track, at least on a first time listen, due to just how much information is being crammed into my brain at any given moment. It's a wild, wild experience. I had no idea what I was in store for. But it does make me wonder what their live videos are like. Well, live performances. Like I mentioned, almost everything in here feels improvised in one way or another. This is a programmed version of it, as it states, but that doesn't mean that there might not have been some live programming going on. After all, any producer is going to program a studio version, program the production on it, It's just that that version that they programmed becomes solidified as the bass form, the studio version. But being that everything is sort of modulatable, I don't know if that's modular, and the music is rather static aside from the drum part, like I mentioned earlier, it's really easy to envision them, for instance, hitting the space bar and starting all of these sounds, or just engaging whatever they need to create this music. The drummer does their own thing. They go up there and start tweaking some knobs and some sliders and all sorts of stuff, and it creates this, I don't know, this fluid adaptation of where they started, and where they go is going to be different every night. Like, it makes a lot of sense. I can see how it works within this context. I'm kind of interested if I would enjoy that or not, because there's nothing here that really grabs me as a pre-recorded thing, something that I would want to listen to on my own. This isn't that. I find the concept behind it and the approach to it, the execution of the concept, is interesting from a composer's perspective, but again, there's nothing in here musically that really grabs me, but the event of doing it makes it feel like performance art in a way that, not, I mean, music is a performance art, even with scripted pre-composed music, but this feels like it ventures into the world of performative live art. And I don't even know how to make this differentiate. I hope y'all understand where I'm going with this. I don't know how to differentiate this. But it feels even more divorced from the traditional music landscape than improvisational solos in jazz. It feels like it's even distanced from that a little bit into the realm of I don't have a word for it. Performance art. It's just, the art is the performance itself, not an art that is performed. Does that make sense? I would hit some lyrics normally at this point, but I don't think there were any. So we're just going to wrap this up. Those are my thoughts. The blank references the GoriLLa PlatooN. What did y'all think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Did any of you enjoy parts of this? Is there anything I stated that needs to be corrected? Maybe you have a different opinion or perspective on that you want to inform me about. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. This menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this one, though we do have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.